So a conversation I have a lot with clients is around the whole idea of how do we know whether it's our intuition telling us not to do something or not to go to a particular place, and how do we differentiate that from our resistance that's trying to stop us going to a place that's really true for us to go to, or take a decision or take an action that's really true for us to do. So it's a great question. It's something I've had to learn to differentiate myself over the years, is knowing when to go somewhere and when I'm resisting going somewhere. So here's my response. This is my distinction, if you like, one of my main distinctions for differentiating here. So the first thing I say is, how did it feel initially? And what I mean by that is, I know personally that when I'm really inspired to do something, my consciousness expands, I get really excited, I see the possibilities. And I also know that within sometimes minutes, sometimes hours or days or weeks, the resistance is going to kick in, and I'm going to start to get scared, and I'm going to rationalize things away and procrastinate and delay and find reasons not to move forward. But what I can always do is go back to that moment or that period of inspiration and go, I know it was right, then my resistance kicked in to try to talk me out of it. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is, I say, well, how do we know it's our intuition if it's telling us not to do something? So for me, the way I kind of tell my intuition is to often feel like, no, this doesn't feel right to do this. This just has never felt right. There was never that moment of inspiration in the first place. And the resistance didn't kick in because there wasn't any inspiration. So I learned to trust that voice that says, no, this isn't right. And I know what I've tended to do, and I think so many of us tend to do, is we try to override that intuition, because something may appear logically to be right for us and it may make sense for us to do it. But if that feeling of this is never right isn't there, however hard we try or push ourselves or try to rationalize why it would be right, it will never properly fit. There'll always be that kind of inertia, if you like, because we're trying to make ourselves do something which isn't actually right for us to do. So I don't know if that resonates with you at all, but that's the way that I tend to differentiate between resistance and intuition. If you felt inspired and then the resistance kicks in, go back to that initial sense of inspiration. But if nothing ever inspired you, if there was never that excitement and that feeling of inspiration, trust that it's your intuition saying, no, this isn't right for you. However, logically, it may appear to make sense to do that. So that's how I navigate my way through making a lot of decisions, is through that sense of kind of just trusting myself. And I suppose it does raise that bigger question. How do we trust our own decision making? How do we know what are the right decisions for us to make? And that's one of the ways that I navigate my decision making process.